don't pay us to think. They pay us to know. We know we can beat them. There's no excuses why we shouldn't. Win the game, period. W is on 3, man. Let's go. W on 3. 1, 2, 3, W.
Welcome, all my fellow Redskin brethren and sistren. I am your man and resident Redskins fan, Lou. Thank you for joining me here on the Redskins Report. Episode 2 of my 3-part series entitled The Offseason Playbook. Episode 1 featured what the Redskins should do in the draft. Episode 2 now focuses on free agency. We are now less than a week away from the start of the new league year, which brings free agency. A lot of things have transpired. I think we're going to see a lot of moves made by the Redskins tomorrow. That's why doing this video tonight is so important, because as we all know, the Redskins love to do transactions late on Friday afternoon into the evening and try to sneak them under the wire on the weekend when no one's paying attention. That's how they try to conduct business. They're not fooling anyone. We're on to their shenanigans. We know what they like to do, and this is the time when they like to make things happen. I surmise that we're going to see some moves to give them some cap relief, and they're going to try to do these moves towards the end of the week and sneak them in when no one's paying attention. But as they should know by now, we live in a society that is in the social media era. We see and hear everything. You can't hide a damn thing, even if you tried. So, with that being said, I expect the Redskins, right now, they sit with right around roughly $17 million worth of cap space going into free agency. Not nearly enough to be a serious player if you're trying to enhance your ball club. If you take Bruce Allen on face value, at face value, and him saying we're close, which we all know, close to what? Playoffs maybe? Hell no. Being a Super Bowl contender? Hell no. Close to being what? One of the worst franchises in football? Ding, ding, ding. However, he says we're close. And if you take him at face value, that means they want to be active in free agency. In order to do that, they're going to have to make some maneuvers. And if you've been paying attention to the rest of the league, and I'm going to talk about it on my podcast, make sure you check out the Louie T Network podcast, available on Stitcher, Google Music Play, iTunes, TuneIn, and the website, louietnetwork.net. I'm working on getting it on Spotify. Someone asked me about that, so I'm going to try to get it on Spotify. Hopefully that'll be up and running, and I'll let you know if I am in fact able to do that. But nonetheless, you've seen a lot of the moves going on around the league, teams cutting players to give themselves cap relief. The Redskins have done nothing. That's about to change. I am going out on a limb and saying we're going to see moves being made as early as tomorrow. Redskins love making moves late Friday evening to try to sneak in to the weekend. So I think you're going to see 3, possibly 4 moves that could free up every bit of $17 additional million, which essentially would double the amount of free agency salary cap space the Redskins would have to operate. You could see the Redskins do one of 4 things. You could see the Redskins, or all of them for that matter. 1, get rid of Zach Brown. I think that's something that is imminent. Zach Brown being released would free up $6 million worth of cap space. I don't foresee him being in the Redskins' future. There's been a lot of bad blood between the two of late. A lot of, Zach Brown mouthing off in the public eye, whether it's on social media or to reporters about the Redskins, and then going back and trying to backtrack and say that his words are being twisted. He's even threatened a reporter. He's got a lot going on. I don't think he's going to be with the Redskins come next offseason. Remember, it was a pretentious negotiating situation last year when he was looking to get paid, and the Redskins were kind of holding out, and they finally agreed to a 3-year, $27 million deal, I believe it was, somewhere in there. He's going to be cut, I believe, and that's going to free up $6 million worth of cap space. Then you look at Vernon Davis. VD has been a really solid acquisition for the Redskins, but his time in D.C. may be up. The Redskins may decide to hold on to him. As we all know, Josh Norman would free up the most cap space of anyone, and I don't think they're going to cut bait with Josh Norman. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that they still see Vernon Davis as a viable backup, especially knowing that Jordan Reed isn't good for 16 consecutive games, that you're going to need other guys to step up at that position, and we really don't have anyone else unless you count Jeremy Sprinkle. There isn't much there, or you're talking about Flanagan. There isn't much there right now, so maybe they hold on to Vernon Davis, but if you cut bait with Vernon Davis, that's an additional $4 million that you save there. You look at some other guys. Stacey McGee is as good as gone, if you ask me. That's an additional, I believe, $3 million that you would save in parting ways with Stacey McGee. And so that gets you to 13 right there. And I think there's one more move that the Redskins could make, and that's Mason Foster. You get rid of Mason Foster, that's an additional $4 million. That gets you to $17 million. That gets you to 34 under the cap. If you restructure, or excuse me, if you re-sign Brandon Sheriff, if you get a deal, a long-term deal reached with Sheriff, that could bring his cap number down and free up an additional $6 to $8 million. So now you're looking at well over $40 million. That puts you in the ballpark where you can be a competitive and aggressive franchise in free agency. Now, again, are all of these things going to take place and transpire? Highly unlikely. I know some of them are going to take place. They're going to get rid of Stacey McGee. They're going to get rid of Zach Brown. Now, I can't say if they're going to move on from Vernon Davis or not. And Mason Foster right now, I don't know if that's a good idea, because you can't count on Reuben Foster to not get suspended. I think it's almost a sure thing that he's going to be suspended before the league starts, or the season starts, rather. And so I think that you'd be foolish to cut bait with Mason Foster and Zach Brown, both of your starting inside linebackers from a year ago when the season first began, and go into the season with Hamilton from Alabama and foreseeable future Reuben Foster. But in the short term, you don't have another starting inside linebacker. So I don't know if the Redskins would feel comfortable with going into the season without having a guy that they know they can trust to start. And that's why I think Mason Foster being cut may not be something that the Redskins pursue at this current time. But nonetheless, they've got some moves that they can make to free up some cap space. It'll be interesting to see what they do. I expect that to start on Friday. Again, you see a lot of these teams. You saw the Ravens go to work. They've cut Michael Crabtree. They've cut Eric Weddle. They've made some moves. You've seen the Ravens and other teams around the league be very active in trying to get rid of players. You saw the Browns cut Jamie Collins. You're seeing a mass exodus around the league. Teams cutting players. Mark Barron was cut with the Rams. You're seeing teams cut bait to try to put themselves in a position to be able to be active during free agency, and I expect the Redskins to get in on it come tomorrow, starting tomorrow. So let's look at free agency for the Redskins. And I wasn't going to do this video live, but after the trade for Case Keenum, I felt like there was a hunger for you guys to have dialogue, open dialogue, and so I want to be a part of that. So here we are. We're going to talk live. I was just going to do this locally and upload it, but let's do this thing live. And so I'll give you some of my thoughts on free agency and what I think the Redskins should do, what direction they may be going in, and then we'll open up the floor to you guys and let you have at it. Just so you know, I don't have eyes on your comments at this moment. I don't know why it's not showing up on the monitor in front of me, but I am able to access it on my computer, but I won't be able to do it until after I've gotten through everything that I have to get through. So just so you know, I can't see what's being said. That being said, let's get to free agency. Now, to me, these are all the positions that we need in free agency. You look at the offensive side of the football, quarterback, obviously a glaring need. Redskins did address that somewhat today with the trade for Case Keenum, but that's still a position of need. Obviously, we need a young quarterback on the roster, whether a developmental quarterback, as I've mentioned in the past, or a guy that you peg as the future of the franchise. Either way, we need QB help. I don't think we're going to make any moves in free agency other than the one we made today. So, again, I think we're done with free agency. Unless you consider trading for Rosen free agency, that's fine by me. But he's not a free agent. If that's a move made, it'll have to be via trade. The only thing that we were going to do quarterback-wise in free agency was going to be a Teddy Bridgewater or a Tyrod Taylor or a Ryan Fitzpatrick, someone. And you'll take a look at the names here in a second. But receiver is another positional need. The free agency crop of wide receivers is beyond trash. So I don't expect the Redskins to even be interested in anyone there except their own in Jamison Crowder. Will Crowder want to come back? It'd be in his best interest to come back on probably a one-year deal in a system that he's familiar with that will give him a chance to be healthy, go out, ball, and then get paid next year on the free agent market. Coming off of an injury-plagued season where his production wasn't high, he won't get paid as much money as he could potentially get paid off of a strong campaign. So it'd be in his best interest to come back. We'll talk about that in a second. But offensive line, obviously a glaring need for this football team. We saw the Redskins decided to stand pat last year at guard, and it bit them in the ass royally, and they deserved it. To be honest, they deserved to have what happened to them because they allowed it to happen. They knew they had an issue at left guard. They decided to ignore it, and it came back and bit them in the ass. They cannot do that this year. They can ill afford to go into the season staring at guard and center and not addressing those positions. Again, I think that we're fine at center personally with Chase Rouillet, but again, they may feel like they need an upgrade there. Either way, you need to attack the offensive line, whether it's guard or center or both. That needs to be addressed in the offseason, and it may be addressed via free agency. We'll see. It wouldn't shock me if Bruce tried to go low-level free agent and try to knock out guard via free agency. But also, you look at the defensive side of the football. We need an edge rusher. Preston Smith is a free agent. I don't anticipate Preston Smith coming back. That being said, anything's possible. It's still on the table. But I see this as a Brian Orakpo situation. He's not bad, but he's not great. He wants more than he's probably worth in D.C. He's going to go elsewhere. He's going to test the market. There isn't going to be a lot of a market out there in terms of edge rushers available because most teams franchise tag the ones that are worth having, i.e. D Ford, franchise tag. DeMarcus Lawrence, franchise tag. Jadeveon Clowney, franchise tag. You see where I'm going with this. Frank Clark, franchise tag. If you're any good as a pass rusher, you're going to get franchise tag, and teams are going to try to work out a long-term deal with you. Hence, Preston Smith, Trey Flowers, they're going to be guys that are highly sought after because there aren't going to be many other edge rushers available. I don't think he's going to be back, which puts us in a position where you're either going to have to ask a guy that I don't trust to step up and make some plays as an edge rusher. And, you know, I wasn't a huge fan of the Alabama product that we got in the second round a couple of years ago. You can either ask him to start and thrust him into that position and see if you can get something out of him, or you could go out in the free agent market and pursue some free agents, or you could try to attack it via the draft. There are options, but we definitely need to address edge rusher. Inside linebacker, as I mentioned, you've got Reuben Foster. You've got a couple of Alabama inside linebackers that you really like, and if they were both healthy and both cleared by the league to start the season, then maybe there isn't as glaring a need here. But if you cut Zach Brown, if you decide to move on from Mason Foster to save you some more money, then you really need help at inside linebacker. If you hold on to Mason Foster, presumably you're going to probably get a Reuben Foster suspension, but he'll be back at some point. And then you add to the mix the other linebacker that we got last year in the draft out of Alabama, and all of a sudden now you look at that group, and it's not that bad of a group of inside linebackers, and then maybe inside linebacker isn't as big of a need. But if you decide to cut both starting inside linebackers from a season ago in Zach Brown and Mason Foster, then you're left with Sean Dion Hamilton and Reuben Foster, one of which probably won't be able to start the season due to suspension. You're going to need help at inside linebacker, so that's a need there. Cornerback is a need, although I'm not really sure the Redskins view it as that big of a need, especially if you hold on to Josh Norman. I think Dunny's injury really hurt us last year. They feel that way. They feel like Dunny coming back healthy. You still have a glaring hole right now in the slot, but if Fabian Moreau is able to play the slot better in year 2 of playing the slot than he was in year 1, maybe that won't be that bad of a situation. I liken that situation to when we had the Virginia Tech product, Kendall Fuller, that we traded to the Chiefs. His first year, he wasn't all that great in the slot. Second year, the light bulb came on. He was outstanding. Maybe they view the same thing for Fabian Moreau. I think Fabian Moreau is more of a boundary corner myself. But we've got a ton of young corners. Like, I don't know if they view cornerback as big of a need as we do, because remember, they gave up a 6th rounder last year, for Adonis Alexander in the supplemental draft. So AA is on the roster. I think they like him. You got to remember about Fabian Moreau, as I just mentioned. They still got Josh Norman. You still have Dunny. You look at some of the young guys last year and Stroh and some of the other guys. It's a bunch of guys that they think are solid football players that if they are able to mature from last year's baptism by fire, that they don't necessarily have a glaring need. I still think that slot corner is an issue for us that we haven't addressed since Kendall Fuller's trade. That's the only position at cornerback right now that I think we're lacking at per se. But I just want to see some of the young guys get opportunities. And so you move on to safety. Obviously, we're depleted at safety. You get rid of DJ Swearinger late in the year last year. Monte Nicholson got into trouble, and they were really low on him last year after being extremely high going into the season. Troy Apke, what is he really? We don't know. He got injured last year, so we really didn't see a lot of him. There's always DeShazer Everett, but to me, he's like the new Reed Doughty. You like DeShazer, but you don't want DeShazer necessarily starting. You don't mind him coming in mid-game. You don't mind him in some sub-packages, but you really don't want DeShazer Everett starting. He's a solid contributor on specials. You don't mind him being in the game if he has to be in a pinch. But going into the game or going into a season, it's not cool to say, hey, DeShazer Everett's one of our starters. So, obviously, there's a need at safety. Right now, if you look at the Redskins, if they don't consider Monte Nicholson a starting safety, I do, but I don't know if they do. We don't have a starting safety right now. Clint Dix is a free agent. I don't think most of you want him back. I don't think he was as bad as most of you think he was, but he's not as good as we thought he was going to be. And I think that's where the disconnect is. We gave up a 4th-round pick. By the way, I'd like my 4th-round pick back. We can't get it back. There's no give-backs, no take-backs. So at the end of the day, we'll see what the Redskins decide to do. Speaking of which, let's go on and look at these positions at which the Redskins could be shopping in free agency. So, starting the offensive side of the football, and let me give you a little bit of a breakdown as to what you're looking at. You're looking at a list of some of the best free agents that I think are available at the respective positions the Redskins need help at. Now, I've got a color-coded system going here. If it's red, I think the Redskins personally should try to see what's good with that player, and I'll have a reasoning as to why. If it's yellow, I think the Redskins themselves will be interested. I don't necessarily think they should be interested in that player, but they are probably interested in that player. If it's green, both the Redskins and I are in agreement that that player is one that you should be sniffing around. And if it's white, I don't think the Redskins are interested, and I'm definitely not interested. Neither of us are interested in that player at this current time. Now, again, this is all hearsay. I'm speculating. I can't confirm nor deny who the Redskins are actually interested in. I'm just giving you my take and my perspective on who I think they may be interested in. So, looking at quarterbacks, you can pretty much wash that whole column down in white, because with the trade for Case Keenum today, they're not going out and being active in free agency. That was their free agent maneuver there. But for the sake of what I had in front of me, I thought they were going to be interested in Bridgewater. I think his number was going to be too high, but I think they were going to try to see what Bridgewater was looking at with Fitzpatrick. I wouldn't have minded Fitzpatrick, but you know how it goes with Ryan Fitzpatrick. He giveth, he taketh away. I really wasn't interested in riding that roller coaster next year like the Buccaneers fans did, thinking that they were going to be some kind of good, and then having them realize that Ryan Fitzpatrick was their quarterback. I didn't want to ride that roller coaster, but I was all in on Tyrod Taylor. If they wanted to bring him in, like I said, he's a black version of Alex Smith. I'd had no problems with him leading us to 8 or 9 wins next year, but that's not going to happen now. Josh Johnson was on the roster last year. They liked Josh Johnson. Apparently, he had a knee injury that he sustained at the end of the year, which is part of the reason they haven't re-signed him. But I think that's dead now as well. He can go ahead and play for San Diego in the AAF, because I don't think the Redskins are going to re-sign him. And the Josh McCown thing, here was my rationale with him. He was so good for Sam Darnold last year in New York with the Jets that I figured, hey, if he's available and we drafted a rookie quarterback, he would be the perfect guy to bring in and help mentor a young quarterback. I mean, he was the absolute perfect guy for Sam Darnold in New York last year. I can remember vividly last year, first game of the season, Sam Darnold's first passes in NFL pro. He throws a pick six back across his body. He goes over to the sideline. He's all wide-eyed and he's panicking. And Josh McCown comes over to him, says, calm down, young fella. It can't get any worse than that. You're going to be just fine. He then walks over to the offensive coordinator and says, hey, you keep throwing the football. You let this young fella learn. You keep throwing the football. And what did he do? He went out and threw it that night. They ended up scoring about 50 points, and they blew out the Lions in that game. I said all that to say this. McCown would have been a perfect mentor to a young quarterback on this roster, but that's probably not going to be the case now. So that's out of the question, but that was my rationale as to why Josh McCown was in red. You look at the receiver position, it's trash, as you can see in front of us. That's why they're all white for the most part. Golden Tate, he doesn't fit what we need. Adam Humphries is actually not a bad receiver, but I'm good. I'd rather get Jamison Crowder back than Adam Humphries. Devin Funchess is a big target, but again, I'm good. Tyrell Williams is very interesting because he's a deep threat. He's big, he's fast, and I think he actually could be a viable option for the Redskins, but I also think he's going to get paid. The Colts are sniffing around. They've got way more money than we can contend with. So are the Raiders. They've got way more money than we can contend with. Both of those teams like Tyrell Williams, which tells me we don't have a chance to get him, so I'm off of him. Dante Moncrief was the guy we wanted last year. I'm good on Dante Moncrief this year. Thanks, but no thanks. Jamison Crowder is the only guy that I think Redskins should be interested in and that I'm interested in because, again, it makes sense for everybody involved. For the Redskins, for Jamison Crowder, I think right now he's the best option in the slot. We don't actually have a guy. I know you guys like what the 7th rounder last year gave us flashes of when he was healthy. But, again, I'm not sure that he can stay healthy, one, because he didn't stay healthy last year, and two, I don't know if he can't go outside. I don't know if he can't play multiple positions. Like, he doesn't have to be relegated to just the slot like Jamison Crowder is. And I think Crowder is a much better receiver right now than really just about anybody we have on our team right now. When he's right, Crowder is a difference maker. He didn't have the season he wanted to have going into free agency with the injuries last year. It makes sense for him to come back on a one-year deal to try to prove it. And I think the Redskins are interested in bringing him back. We'll see what happens. Randall Cobb, I'm good. And Bruce is generally good on aging veteran free agents. And when's the last time the Redskins signed a 30-something? They don't do that very often. Since Bruce has taken over, say what you want. And Bruce does a lot of bullshit, but the one thing he doesn't do is sign aging guys. He doesn't sign really good free agent acquisitions, but he doesn't sign aging veterans either. John Brown can still run. I thought he actually had a productive campaign in Baltimore last year. Cole Beasley is a guy that we all have seen and know that he's capable of being a very dynamic receiver in this league, but he's Jamison Crowder to us. If you're going to sign Cole Beasley, you might as well bring back Jamison Crowder. That's assuming Crowder wants to be in Washington. And then Michael Crabtree, again, I'm good, and he's an aging veteran. You go to the offensive line, there's not a lot there necessarily, but there are a couple of guys that I think the Redskins would be interested in. Roger Saffold, no. Ramon Foster, no. John Miller, no. I think Mike Person, the newly released San Francisco 49er guard, is a guy that the Redskins, I think, would be interested in. That sounds like a deal that Bruce would go and get on a 2-year, $11 million deal with 4 of it guaranteed. That sounds like something he would try to do. Now, I think Mike Person is going to command more money than that, but that sounds like something that Bruce would try to do to put a Band-Aid on the guard position. Matt Paredes is a guy that plays both center and guard out of Denver. He's a really good player. I don't think the Redskins can afford him, but I think they're going to sniff around him. Then when they realize he's out of our price range, they're going to move on. But I think I'm interested in him. I think they're going to be interested in him. I just don't think they're going to be able to afford Matt Paredes. Mitch Morse out of Kansas City, a solid guy that I think the Redskins, again, much like Mike Person, I could easily see Bruce waiting to the second week of free agency and signing Mitch Morse to a 3-year, $19 million deal with 6 of it guaranteed. And voila, you've got a center guard situation there that gives you more depth and flexibility up front. That's the kind of guy that Bruce would go after in free agency. I'm not saying, I'm just saying. So you go from the offensive side to the defensive side, and this is what it looks like for me. At the edge rushing position, Trey Flowers going to be well out of our price range. so it's not even worth discussing. Preston Smith, I think the Redskins are going to be interested in bringing him back. I think he would be interested in coming back, but I think there's more money out there for him to get elsewhere, and so I don't expect him to be back. I've told you that from the jump. I told you that all of these high-priced pass rushers that were going to load the market up were going to be taken off the market before it even got started, with their teams slapping a franchise tag on them, and that has since come to fruition. Sedarius Smith is an interesting case out of Baltimore. He's a guy that can get after the quarterback and stop the run. He's not dynamic, though, and so I would hope that the Redskins would allow him to go elsewhere. But that sounds like a guy the Redskins would be sniffing around a la Pernell McPhee. I don't want another one of those guys. I don't want another Ryan Anderson. I don't want another Pernell McPhee. I want something explosive and dynamic, which takes me to some of the other guys on the list, like Dante Fowler Jr. You know how I feel about him. Yes, he comes with baggage. Yes, he's a head case. I understand that. They understand it. That's why it's in red. I don't think the Redskins want Dante Fowler Jr. because of what he brings to the team off the field. But they signed Reuben Foster. Now, the difference between Reuben Foster and Dante Fowler Jr. is Reuben Foster is still on a rookie deal. It's affordable. Dante Fowler Jr. is a free agent. Going to cost you more. I don't think they're interested in Dante Fowler Jr., but I am, and I think that's a guy the Redskins should consider. Shane Ray, another guy that the Redskins should consider. He was explosive coming out of Missouri, really has been marred by injuries in Denver. Maybe a fresh start for him is what he needs to be a productive player in this league. We know the guy has some explosive twitchiness in him. Maybe he can rejuvenate his career elsewhere, and maybe that place could be DC for the right price. I don't know. I like Shane Ray. I don't know if the Redskins are interested, but again, Shane Ray seems like a guy that Bruce could get late in the process, late in the first week, early second week, where Bruce, signs him to a 3-year, $27 million deal, and most of it with bonuses and escalators if he plays X amount of games and gets a certain amount of sacks. And that sounds like the kind of deal Bruce would do. But anyway, Ezekiel Ansah, nah, we're good. He's a 4-3 base end. We don't play a 4-3, but again, we're in even personnel quite a bit, so you don't want to rule him out. Clay Matthews, Terrell Suggs. Suggs is going back to Baltimore, I believe. And Clay Matthews past his prime, and he's a 30-something. We don't do 30-somethings, if you recall. Shaquille Barrett, though, is in yellow. I'm good on Shaquille Barrett, but I remember that year in 2015 when they went to the Super Bowl where he was tearing shit up with that whole rotation in Denver with Ray, Barrett, Von Miller, and DeMarcus Ware. Shaquille Barrett is a solid pass rusher. He's nothing to write home about. But again, that's the kind of guy that Bruce would try to sell to us as, hey, I got Shaq Barrett out there as an edge rusher because we lost Preston Smith. They get Shaq Barrett on an affordable deal, and he's another Ryan Anderson type. A little bit more explosive than Anderson off the edge, but nonetheless, he's not dynamic. We're looking for dynamic edge rushing, speed, and difference-making ability. That's not what you get out of Shaq Barrett. So you go to inside linebacker. Bottom line here is C.J. Mosley is going to be too much for the Redskins, but I'm interested. I'm pretty sure they're going to be interested, but he's not going to be in their price range. I think the Ravens are rolling the dice here because I think they want him back. I don't understand why they didn't slap the transition tag on him. They must not want him back because if you really, really wanted him back, you slap the transition tag on C.J. Mosley. You get a chance, just like the Bears did last year with Kyle Fuller. They slapped the transition tag on him. The Packers came calling. They were able to match the deal. The man had like 8 or 9 interceptions last year. If you really wanted C.J. Mosley back, slap the transition tag on him, and you get the right of first refusal. Somebody signs him to an offer sheet. You get a chance to match. If it's too much for your blood, you say, okay, you got more than we were willing to pay. It's been nice. Thank you for your services. You may go and make your bread. I don't know if they want him back, but he's going to get paid. Either way, you're talking about a big-time free agent in C.J. Mosley. I don't think the Redskins can afford him. Quan Alexander is a guy that I think is uber talented. When he's healthy, he's definitely a difference maker. He would bring a level of speed to the Redskins defense that we just frankly haven't had. Zach Brown gave us a taste of speed, but he was never where he was supposed to be. Quan Alexander would give you a lot of different things that we just don't have on our team right now defensively, but I don't think the Redskins will be able to afford him either. He's in red because I like Quan Alexander. I don't think the Redskins would be all that interested. You go to, and I think they feel good about their linebacker position, and I don't expect them to get rid of Mason Foster. I think they're going to move on from Zach Brown, but I don't think they're going to cut Mason Foster. I just don't. But in any event, the position that I really want to focus in on, and you notice cornerback is not present because I don't think the Redskins are going to be active in the cornerback market. If they get something at the cornerback position, I think it's going to be in the draft. I could be wrong, but we'll see. Either way, safety is really what I want to focus on because I haven't seen a crop of players at one particular position, at any position for that matter, this deep at free agency before. Like, this is ridiculous. And I talked about it on my podcast. Safety is ridiculous. I mean, you're literally looking at about 5 to 6, 7 if you want to throw Eric Weddle in there. But to me, Eric Weddle has 2 options right now. He's either going back to Baltimore or he's going to retire. I don't know if he wants to play anywhere else. And last time I heard him speak, and this was like a year ago, he said he didn't want to play anywhere else. It was either Baltimore or he's going to retire. So I think he's going to go back to Baltimore. I think they cut him loose because they didn't want to pay him the money that they were slated to pay him. And so they looked at the market. They said, man, this market is oversaturated with talent. We want you back, but we want you back at a lower price. So we'll see what happens there. But, I mean, look at this group. It's star-studded. Earl Thomas, Adrian Amos, Landon Collins, HaHa Clinton-Dix, Tyrann Mathieu, LaMarcus Joyner. I mean, that is a tremendous group of free agent safeties. Now, again, that speaks to the safety position and how it's being devalued. However, that's a hell of a class of free agent safety, if I may say so myself. Now, Earl Thomas, he's out of our price range. The man says he wants to be the highest paid safety. We can't afford that. I don't think he's going to exceed Eric Berry's $13 million per, but it doesn't matter. We can't afford 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. We can't afford any of that. So Earl's out of our reach. Adrian Amos is interesting because he's young. He is athletic. He fits a bunch of needs for the Redskins in their secondary. He's smart. I liked him coming out of Penn State. I think he's played well for the Bears. I'm interested to see what the market demands for him. I think he's in that $7 to $9 million range. Really, I think he is on that $7 to $8 million range. He may be able to, again, it's such a saturated market. There's no way Adrian Amos should get $9 or $10 million. I'm thinking you could get him for $7. If you're the Redskins, that's intriguing. $7 mil per for a young safety going into the prime of his career. I like that opportunity there. I don't know if the Redskins agree with me or not. That's why it's only in red. Landon Collins, I think, makes sense for both parties. He wanted to be a Redskin. He idolizes Sean Taylor. I think he wants to stick it to the Giants. He feels disrespected. I also think he fits a lot of what the Redskins need. They need a physical presence in the box. I think we have guys that are athletic enough to play strong safety or a free safety. But as you know, with the Redskins, and really in the league now, you got to be able to rock and roll your safeties. You got to be able to play free. You got to be able to play strong. I think Landon can do a little bit of both. I think this guy's an outstanding player. He's durable. He had an injury last year, but he gutted it out and played through it, despite the Giants being funky. I like everything about this guy. By all accounts, he's a great locker room leader as well. I don't know why the Giants don't want him. There may be something more there that we don't know, but in any event, I would love to get my hands on Landon Collins. I'm not saying, I'm just saying, and I think the Redskins acknowledge that that's a guy that can help, and so I think that's why it's green, because I think both parties, Collins and the Redskins, may have mutual interests with one another. HaHa Clinton-Dix is in yellow. I'm good. I don't think he was terrible for us, but I'm good on HaHa Clinton-Dix. I think the Redskins want to prove that they didn't make a mistake. And it wouldn't shock me if they just said, all right, HaHa, we're going to bring you back. And not even take into consideration all the other guys that are out there. It wouldn't shock me. That would be a Bruce Allen classic maneuver in saying, hey, I wasn't wrong, and I'm going to prove it to you by doubling down on a mistake that he made. It wouldn't shock me. I'm good on him, but we'll see if the Redskins agree. Tyrann Mathieu, I think he wants to play for a winner. That's not what we're doing around here in these parts. And I don't think the Redskins are going to be able to afford $9 million a year, $10 million, which is where I think he'll be in the wheelhouse around. I just don't think that's in the Redskins' wheelhouse. But a guy that is in the Redskins' wheelhouse potentially is LaMarcus Joyner. I think that's a guy that the Redskins could potentially get their hands on. Remember, he was franchise tagged by the Rams last year. Quality football player, can play over the slot. is a very physical football player. He can run. He's undersized, but he's always around the football. I like LaMarcus Joyner a lot. And so those are your free agent moves there. There's another guy, Jonathan Cyprien, that may be released by the Titans to even further bolster the safety position. There are a number of guys. D Ford is available for a trade if you're looking to go that route. Again, I don't want to give up any draft picks. I'm not looking to give away anything. Justin Houston is probably going to be released. I'm hearing rumblings and grumblings that the Dolphins are going to release the ex-Rams pass rusher. Can't think of his name right now. He's a little older, though. Quinn. Robert Quinn. I don't see the Redskins being interested in him either. But you're looking at free agency start to take shape. I think the Redskins are going to make some moves to free up some cap space in the coming days. And I think once we see that, we'll see how aggressive the Redskins are going to be. If they don't free up any cap space going into free agency, then don't expect for the Redskins to be major players. Look, we're never major players anyway. I mean, major for us is going out and signing Paul Richardson to a 5-year, $40 million deal. That's major for us. Major for us is going out and signing Pernell McPhee. All right, major for us is going out and signing Orlando Scandrick. All right, that's major for us. We don't make major moves, so don't expect the Redskins to be major players. But there are some players that are in free agency that make a lot of sense. Doesn't mean the Redskins are going to make those moves. So let's get to your comments. That's how I feel about the Redskins in free agency. Now let's see how you guys feel about free agency with the Redskins. And whoa, I don't see anything with the chat. I think something's wrong with the stream, to be honest. But you know what? Maybe that's a sign that I just need to end the stream. Okay. For those of you out there, I'm sorry. I can't see your comments. I don't know what's going on. I'm not able to see the comments. But in any event, how do you feel about Redskins in free agency? What do you think are some moves the Redskins need to make? Leave it in the comment section below. I'm dying to hear what you guys have to say about the Redskins and their free agency and what they should target and what they should leave for the draft. You know, and really, free agency is a precursor to the draft, because if the Redskins attack guard, if the Redskins attack, let's say the Redskins attack safety, if the Redskins attack any of those positions. I mean, there are a number of positions. They go out and get an edge rusher. These are positions that you could probably see come off the Redskins target list for the draft. So just keep in mind, if the Redskins go out and let's say they sign Shane Ray, or they go out and sign Sedarius Smith, then they're probably not going to draft an edge rusher at 15, which we all want them to do. If the Redskins go out in free agency and let's say they bring back Crowder, maybe they don't target a receiver at 15. I still think they would need to, but maybe they think Crowder's back, Trey Quinn's coming back. We like the Sims kid out of Alabama. He'll be back. We still think that Robert Davis can be healthy this year. He can give us something. We're getting Paul Richardson back. We've got a group of receivers that we really like. We are going to be fine at receiver. Josh Doxson, he's got a make it or break it, prove it year. He's going to be a little bit better. And they may just come back with the collection of stuff that they have. Who's to say? You know, we're going to find out a lot about the direction of the Redskins draft by what they do or don't do in free agency. So I think this next week is going to be very telling. And really with the Redskins, you have to extend it out to maybe the next 3 weeks, because Bruce usually doesn't strike in the first day, first 2 days, or even the first week of free agency. He's looking for the pink tag. He's looking for the pink tag items, the clearance items on the back rack all the way in the back of the store. You don't get those in day 1 or day 2 of free agency. You get the pink tag, orange tag, clearance items in the second week of free agency, the third week, when nobody's paying attention, when the market is settled, when all the money is dried up. That's when you get the cheap clearance items. That's when Bruce likes to do his most shopping. And so expect the Redskins to make some moves probably later on in free agency, and that will give us an idea as to what they're targeting potentially in the draft. I, of course, am your man, Louie T, and I'm a Redskins fan etched in burgundy and gold. My Redskins spirit will never die. Redskins spirit will never fold. Until we meet again, hail to our beloved Washington Redskins. Again, make sure you check out the podcast, Louie T Network Podcast, on Stitcher, Google Music Play, tune in, iTunes, on the website, louietnetwork.net. New episode should be up sometime today, if not early tomorrow for sure. And also make sure you like this video, subscribe to the Louie T Network, and make sure you comment in the comment section. What do you think the Redskins should do in target, in free agency, and what are some of the moves they should do to free up some cap space? I'm your man, Louie T, signing off. If it's not your man T, it's not the best NFL coverage it could be. I'll see you guys next time. Have a good one.